Okay, so this is kind of where we left off. So with this one, I think, we'll make sure you have this highlighted. You want to be on your text tool. We want to adjust maybe the space between the lines, which is actually called the leading. So we would actually go over to the Properties panel under the Character panel here and adjust the leading. I think it's here. So it's a little confusing, but you can see the baseline of these two A's, the space in between those. So we can kind of, if you go to 8 point, it's way too tight. Let's make it probably closer to, maybe, we can also do it just using these little arrows. And sometimes I do that just to try and get the best thing possible. So let's make that 36. And let's actually change the font up here as well of this headline. So, I mean, I could try using Blackjack, which is like one of my favorite ones, but honestly, for a headline, I would suggest going with something that's very legible, very readable. This is a little too scripty for text of this size. I mean, if you have a smaller, like this is Blackjack here, if you have a smaller bit of text that you want to have more scripty, you can, but like this is not the best thing for legibility, so we probably want to keep it pretty simple. I like DIN. I don't think you guys have that though, so maybe I should stick with something that you have. Let's just go with Arial, regular old Arial here, maybe Arial narrow. And if you want to make it bold, you actually have to go here, so it says regular here, but let's click down on this and make it bold. You can also like go in here, click on this little thing here, and go into Find More, and you should be able to connect into Adobe Fonts this way and actually search through Adobe Fonts. You can actually find different fonts that you don't have downloaded and just sync it up to the cloud by pushing this Activate button. But we're not going to do that here. We're just going to go with Arial Narrow. It should be 36 leading, and the text size should be, let's say, 28, somewhere around there, 29, maybe 29. Okay, so the rest of this, we're actually going to click this and highlight. So click, drag with the text tool, make sure you're on the text tool, and we're going to change this to Arial as well. So if you type in A, it'll take you to the A section. Actually, let's go back into our fonts here. I can actually maybe Arial, let's see here. Sorry, I kind of got lost there. Make sure you're on your fonts here, not still in Find More. Arial Narrow, and let's just make it, we'll keep it on regular. Oops, I missed a line of text. So actually if I click and drag on here, I'm still on my text tool, I can highlight that one area that I missed, that one area, and we can click down on here. We can actually go to the Eyedropper tool and, oops, sorry guys. We can click there and sample from this text, and then if we click and drag, that will create, using that Eyedropper tool, it'll create the same sampling from the other text that we sampled it from. Sorry if that was a little confusing. But yeah, you can use the Eyedropper tool to sample and then highlight other areas that you might have missed, basically. It's pretty nice for that. You can also sample colors. So as you can see, the fill color over here will change depending on, what part of the canvas I'm actually sampling from. So I got that pink color if I want to use that again. But just a quick little thing on the Eyedropper tool. So yeah, we've changed kind of the size, the leading of the text. We can actually change the color of the text. So let's go back to that text tool, highlight this, and let's change. So this is the fill color on that text. There's also an outline color. So if we go here, we can actually go into Window, color. So window color, color, basically. And that'll open up the color panel. We want to make sure we're in CMYK there. And you can actually use this dropper tool if you want to find a color that you like. So you can pick whatever color you want. Just make sure you change this headline text. And if you want to add a stroke to it, you can do that by making sure you have that highlighted and going to that stroke color here and just changing it. I would suggest with text to maybe stay away from strokes on text unless you are really confident that it looks good, because most of the time it doesn't actually look very good. Okay, well, this is looking pretty good. So we can actually, if you grab this with a direct selection or with the direct selection tool, or the selection tool, I guess, we can create columns in the paragraph. We're using this paragraph section of the properties panel, but we can actually uncheck hyphenate. Some of your text might have been hyphenating, so that's kind of a nice place to note. But let's see. I think it's here. Oh, maybe that's not it. Well, here's the columns. So if we need to make columns on a poster, more than likely you're probably not going to need columns. But I just wanted to show you this really quick. I'll probably leave that on 1. So let's push Command 0 to kind of just zero out our canvas here. And let's actually adjust the text size here. Let's make this a little bit bigger because it is really small. So we go over here, it's at 12. Let's just make it, maybe 20. Grab this, grab your selection tool and drag out your box. So somewhere around 20. I'm not going to dock you if it's not exactly 20, but I definitely want you to get it close. And then just push return after graphic design program. We can double click or triple click to highlight this text. Let's make that bold as well. And push return after this and make this bold, just to kind of create a little bit of visual hierarchy in this text, to make it a little bit more understandable. So that's looking all right. I mean, this is pretty basic. And then we want to add in the logo here just for fun. File, place, once again, or Command D. And I want you to bring in this graphic design logo. So we're going to place this in somewhere on the document. Probably a good place to put a logo would either be at the top or the bottom of the poster. So let's grab this text with the selection tool, bring it up, okay, and Command Z to undo. So if you grab stuff right in the middle, you're going to get this weird little, I don't know, bullseye almost. And if you grab it, it'll actually grab your PNG file that you brought in, or your JPEG file, and actually drag it out of the actual bounding box. You can do Command Z that if that happens, click off of it, and make sure you're on that direct selection tool, and don't grab it in the middle when you get this. Like, actually grab items from kind of the side. Oops, I grabbed the wrong thing. From like the side, more or less. If you grab it right on this thing, you're going to drag it out of the bounding box. Command Z that. So just something to remember, a little tricky to move things around in InDesign. So if you want to center this, let's just kind of move along this vertical or this horizontal axis until we get that pink line. And here it is. It shows up here. We can see that here. The graphic design logo we brought in. And actually one really important thing I want you guys to take a look at is window links. And this is where you can actually go in and see what you have. So this is the banner JPEG up here that we brought in. This is the graphic design logo that's in RGB still. It's a PNG file. You can see that here. So we can actually, I realize that this is not in CMYK, which is what we need for print. So one thing you can do, I want you to go into your links panel, find this graphic design logo, and then control click on it, or right click on it if you're on a PC, and do edit with Photoshop. And so that's going to automatically kind of open up this graphic design PNG in Photoshop, and we can actually go to image mode and make this CMYK color. It's going to ask you this question. You can say don't show again, you push OK, and then you can do file, save as, and actually just save this back into that same images folder that it came out of, but we'll take off the RGB and make it CMYK. And it can stay a PSD file or a format of a Photoshop file. We want that, that's fine. You can also save it out as a PNG. You'd have to do a file export as, but Photoshop file .psd file will be just fine. Push save and then OK. And so we have a .psd file that we can actually use now that's in CMYK color mode. So if we use this white arrow tool, or we can just click on this in the links panel, we can do this little relink icon in the links panel. Relink, and then navigate to, gosh darn it, that images folder with all of your images in it. That's within the exercise file, and go to that CMYK logo and then just push open, and it'll actually update that file to be the CMYK file. So let's check out this file too. Control click, edit with Adobe Photoshop, and then let's go to image mode. It's in RGB as well, so we'll do CMYK color, and then we'll just do a Command S. So I think we actually just saved over the old file. We didn't actually save out a new file. We just saved over the old one, which is another way of doing it. So let's check and just make sure. I think it'll automatically update in here. Edit with Photoshop. It should now be image mode CMYK. So it is image mode, CMYK color is checked. So now everything is in CMYK color, and that is something I want you to do with all of your images that you bring in. I want you to control click on these, or click on this little box and do edit with Photoshop, or if it's an Illustrator document, you can bring it in Illustrator and then change it to CMYK color, and then save it, and then just make sure that the files that you have in here, you can either relink them or just save over the old file and make sure it's CMYK. A lot of times you have to save out new files though that are labeled appropriately. So that's something really important that you're going to have to do in here. That's the links panel. And another thing, you know, when you're making this, Essentials Classic might actually, I'm probably going to do the videos using the Essentials Classic workspace just because it has the links panel already open. It has stroke and color and swatches panel too, which are also handy. And you still have that pages panel. But the links are going to be really important. Another important panel that I want you guys to pay attention to is Window Info. So we want the info panel open. So I want you to put that info panel in here. So Window, Info, put that info panel in here and open this up. Use your white arrow tool and click on your images. So as you can see, these are low resolution. This tells us the resolution. So the actual PPI that I exported this at for the web was 72. This was actually exported for a screen. So this is low resolution. I have it sized down a little bit, so it's actually been sized down, but it's still at 128. And for print, we need it at 300. So this is going to be too small. Now, if I grab my selection tool and say I use my free transform tool here, and I just push shift and size this thing down, and then I use my white arrow tool and click on that, I can see my effective PPI has actually gone up quite a bit. So the smaller you make something, the more concentrated the pixels will be together, and it'll actually make it look less blurry. But the actual DPI will stay the same. So I'm going to Command Z that, but I want you to know that you're going to have to be checking This one also has a lower resolution because it wasn't for screen. But I'm going to have to finish this up later here at the next